Today I'm planting tulip bulbs in our edible ornamental landscape, and a lot of people don't think of the tulip as something they can eat, but the petals actually have a delightful floral flavor, and they work well as a substitute for crackers served alongside dips. Now, most growers treat tulips as an annual, and they're a very popular garden plant, but we replace them year after year. And the reason for this is they tend to rot in our soils, and so they don't perennialize. And there's a couple things we could do to try to get our tulips to come back year after year. And one of those is to plant the species type tulips instead of the hybrids. And this is a species, Tulipa colusiana, and this cultivar is called Cynthia. And the bulbs are certainly much smaller than what we think of with our normal tulips, but these are a species tulip that might be a little bit hardier, and this species in particular does well in clay soils, so I thought it might perform well for us here in Oklahoma. Now, another thing we can try to get our tulips to perennialize is to put them in a raised bed. Because they tend to rot, one of the reasons is during the summer we irrigate our landscapes and the water will sit in the soil. But if we put them up in a raised bed, then the water can drain out. And so we've built a berm here in our edible landscape, and the soil in here is very loose. There's a lot of organic matter. It's largely composed of compost. And so this should be a very well drained soil, and we could try to get our tulips to come back year after year. This soil bed will also be really nice for our Mediterranean herbs, which also need good drainage. So when we plant our tulip, we want to plant them at a depth that's about 3 times that of the tulip. And when we think about that depth, that's the depth above our bulb. So if our bulb is about 2 inches, then we want 6 inches of soil on top of that. And so they go fairly deep, but if we put them too deep, then they might not come up, and if they're too shallow, they can be exposed to cold temperatures. Now, this loose soil does provide a little bit of a challenge when it comes to digging our holes. When we set our bulbs, we want to put them so that this pointed end is up. That's where the shoots will emerge, and this is where the roots will grow. Sometimes you can't tell, maybe the bulb is a little bit flattened. In that case, plant it sideways, and then your roots can go down and your shoot can come up. But if you put it upside down, the roots have to wrap around, and that stem has to wrap around to grow properly. So really try to get it in a good orientation. Now, our spacing for our bulbs is about 3 inches. With our larger bulbs like tulips, we want to space them about 3 to 6 inches apart. If you're planting the smaller species types, then probably 2 to 3 inches would be good. And again, be careful to set them with the proper orientation. I like to plant nice clumps of bulbs, maybe putting about 5 together, something like this. And that way we'll have a nice big group of tulips coming up in the springtime. Another consideration that we want to think about is the light conditions. Tulips require full sun for blooming. Other bulbs can tolerate some shade, but you want to make sure that they're going to get enough light to refill those energy stores in the bulb. So a lot of times we plant under trees because the leaves aren't on in the springtime when they bloom, but we want the bulbs to receive enough light to replenish their energy stores so they could bloom again the following year. Well, we're going to return to our edible landscape next spring to plant some more hopefully surprising edible flowers, as well as some more common fruits and herbs. And in the meantime, we'll have these delightful tulips to bring us a little color.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.